Okay, well, I would like to start by saying welcome everyone to our Gear Up presentation of the Google Classroom Families webinar. My name is Jane Reynolds. I am the parent coordinator for the Gear Up for My Success, and my co-hosts today, also from Gear Up for My Success, are Stephanie Conine, okay, and Bradley Cusack. And they are both professional development coordinators. Behind the scenes, we have Laura Halstead, and she is working behind the scenes as our producer. She'll help us catch questions and stuff. And then also with us, we have Danny Maddox, and he is our Gear Up for My Success Director. And again, we are very excited that you guys have joined us today, and we are looking forward to sharing this experience with you. And now you may have wondered, what is Gear Up? What is it all about? So let's take a moment and we'll let Danny explain.
Thanks, Jane. So hey again, everybody. Some of you are probably wondering, what Gear Up is or may have no idea who we are. The full name of our grant is actually Gear Up for My Success. Now brace yourself, because My Success is an acronym that I've worked 3 years to learn, and it stands for motivating you to seek and understand college and career to enhance student scholarship. That's a pretty big mouthful. And yes, I'm reading that off the screen in case you're wondering, but I do have it memorized. So anyhow, you'll usually hear our project just simply referred to as Gear Up, like among the students and staff at the school. All of our Gear Up for My Success partnership schools are here on this map on your screen. So if your student goes to a Gear Up sponsored event, like a campus visit, they might come home wearing one of our t-shirts. And you may hear them talking about Gear Up in like a Gear Up lesson or a Gear Up career fair, or, any number of different things that we do. So what is Gear Up? So we're a federally funded grant program, and we operate out of the K-20 Center at the University of Oklahoma in Norman. Our ultimate goal is to increase the number of students in your school who are prepared for a post-secondary education, and then to help them be successful as they transition out of high school. When we say, you'll hear that term post-secondary education a lot when we talk about Gear Up stuff and throughout the different things that we do. We don't just mean college or a university in a traditional sense. We're talking about any sort of technical training or a college that your student may need after high school that's going to help them in their career path. And so to do this, we work with all kinds of different stakeholders at the schools, from leadership, families, teachers, students, community partners. There's a whole lot of different programs and events, just like this one here tonight, that we facilitate to try to help us meet our goals. So speaking of grant goals, here they are. So here are our three primary goals for our grant that we're operating. And you'll see there that first, we're hoping to increase cohort academic performance and preparation for a post-secondary education. So that word cohort, what we mean is, technically, we specifically only serve 8th and 9th graders this year. Next year, they'll be 9th and 10th, 10th and 11th, 11th and 12th, and so on. But the school and the community kind of has a chance to take advantage of everything that we do, but really we just serve those 2 grade levels. So our second goal is to increase high school graduation rates and participation in a post-secondary education. And then last, it's important to increase the educational expectations and family knowledge of options, preparation, and financing. So there's a lot of different services we provide, and we have a lot more goals than just what's on the screen there, but those are our 3 big ones. What we want to do is we want to help your student be ready for that next step when they walk across the stage that will get here probably sooner than we know it. I have 2 middle schoolers myself, and I look at pictures from what feels like yesterday, and they were 2 and 3 years old. So I just want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We're going to cover a lot of information, but I want you to know, and we'll repeat this a couple times, that we're going to record everything. It'll be available for you to review at your own pace after the event that's live right now. So don't worry if you feel like you're behind on anything or you don't quite catch everything that we say. If you registered for the webinar, we have your email address, and we'll send you the links to our YouTube videos and the other resources that we'll be talking about this evening. Okay, I think that about does it for me. I'm going to pass it back over to Jane, who's going to talk about our objectives for this event that we're doing here tonight.
All right, thank you, Danny. So today our objectives are going to be showcasing tools that focus on Google Classroom and Google Workplace that was formerly known as G Suite. Now, by the end of the webinar, you'll have a better understanding of the Google Education software and how you can use it to work in partnership with your school to help improve academic achievement for your student. And the goals for this session are first, to provide you with an opportunity to analyze and identify parent engagement involvement within a virtual platform. And second, provide you with the opportunity to engage in the numerous features of Google Classroom and experience how you can support your student in a virtual environment. And then before we get started, you again should know that the webinar will be recorded and made available to you in your email and on YouTube soon, because we really go through this at a pretty fast pace. And we want you to be able to view the webinar at your own pace at a later time. And we know there's so much to learn that it will be very helpful for you to go back and review it again. And now with that said, let's dive into our first activity.
Well, again, I would like to welcome everybody. So let's change it up a bit. We've provided you with a ton of information about our Gear Up services, but now it's time to hear from you. So our first activity is going to include you taking a moment to reflect on your experiences with in-class, blended, or remote learning. And so you're going to complete this first activity utilizing Google Forms. So what I would like for you to do, if you notice on your screen, there is a URL that's going to be placed in the chat, or you can use your electronic device, such as a phone, to scan the QR code with your camera that you have on your screen. Or there's also a link to the tiny URL on the screen. So you can utilize the chat URL, you can utilize the URL on the screen, or you can utilize the QR code. So if you're having trouble accessing and unable to participate, don't worry. We would like for you to follow along, or you may type your responses in the chat to follow along. So let's go ahead and go to that Google form. And if you notice on that Google form, some of the questions, you might need to choose an image that best represents how you are feeling. There'll be additional questions, which will include providing a short answer that may best reflect how you're feeling about virtual, blended, or face-to-face learning. But once you're complete, make sure you click that submit button. So at this time, I'm going to give you a few moments to respond. And if you have any questions while you're responding, please feel free to ask. So Danny, you have kids in school right now. How are your experiences going?
What's today? Tuesday? Ask me tomorrow. No, I mean, it depends on the day. It's been an experience. So I have a 6th grader and an 8th grader in Norman. And so, like everyone else, they're using Google Classroom. They've used Canvas. They've used something called Edmentum.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a little bit of a hodgepodge, and it's been, there's been benefits and challenges to it. So it's funny when I look at these different pictures, I'm like, it really depends on the day how I feel about that. And I think that's part of the deal with having these up here is overall the teachers have been great at communicating and trying to set clear expectations and everything. So I feel pretty fortunate in that. But I mean, every school district is different. And on our grant, as you guys saw on that map, for those of you that are listening here, the parents, we have 23 school districts, and they all, our state, they have the school districts kind of do their own thing in a way. I mean, they follow guidance from multiple different areas, but we'll be working with the school that everything is rolling along fine. And it's like, bam, everything has switched to virtual and for the next week or two. So I guess that's kind of just the way I feel about school this year. My kids both say they're learning, but it's kind of like one of those things when they get home from school, say, hey, how was your day? Good.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's like it, and you ask all these probing questions. I don't have to ask as many questions now because I can see everything that they're doing on their computer. Yeah. Which that was a really long-winded response to a simple question, Stephanie. Sorry.
Well, everybody's experiences are unique, and like you stated, your kids have dealt with a ton of platforms. So And
I
so
think that's been one of the things for me is every teacher operates a little differently. And so both of my kids have 6 or so teachers. And so that's 12 classes for me to kind of also have to manage.
absolutely.
So
Yeah, that's tough. So Danny's kind of shared some of his experiences with us. So let's take a look at some of your responses. And so we're going to go to that form again and look at those responses. And I may have my screen too small and I can't read it right now. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so it looks like, so the first question is, what does parent involvement look like in remote learning? And it seems like most of the participants, families have many questions about virtual learning, and then families are struggling with too much information. Danny, he even said he kind of had the same, he has the same issues. If your student, both of your kids are, if you have 2 kids in virtual learning, you have 12 different teachers that you have to deal with. So absolutely. Okay, moving on to that next question is, what are some of the benefits you've experienced? So kids can work at their own pace. I know what my kids are learning. It works with your family schedule. Absolutely. Those are all some positive aspects of virtual learning. But also you guys are having challenges. And I'm not good with computers. Kids and parents, we all struggle because just like any virtual learning platform, Google Classroom is changing on a weekly basis, and it's really hard to keep up to date with it. Some teachers may be utilizing too many tools. Absolutely. Getting answers to your questions or communicating with your teachers may be a struggle. And hopefully we can help you today in assisting you in developing some tools on how you can overcome some of those obstacles. Lastly, how has communication with your students and teachers been like? Well, it seems like we have individuals, interactive phone calls and emails. Usually that's the most popular. Virtual meetings, I think as parents, we're still kind of getting used to that, meeting with a teacher on our virtual platform. So maybe that's a goal that you guys can do maybe for spring parent teacher conferences, is meet with one of your child's teachers virtually. So definitely, as you can see, many of the individuals are struggling just as you are and have the same questions. And that's why we're here today, to help assist you with that information. Alrighty, so now that we have reflected on these varying experiences with you and your students have encountered so far this year, let's explore now and take a deeper look into some of the features of Google Classroom and Google Workspace. That's what you're here for today. So today we'll be looking up at the student upcoming list, Google Calendar, assignment stream, and the features. How do you submit and upload assignments? And last but not least, how is you as a family member or guardian can request access to student progress reports from Google Classroom? Because you guys want to be engaged and know that information too. So now it's time to look at what features Google Classroom has to offer with our resident expert, Bradley.
All right, welcome everyone. Google Classroom is part of a larger suite of tools called the Google Suite, or G Suite. There are several different tools, but some of the most used ones are Docs, which is a word processing software similar to Microsoft Word, and Google Slides, which is a presentation software similar to Microsoft PowerPoint. There's also Google Classroom, which is a learning management system for online and in-person classes. Google Classroom can be used for everything from providing class updates, housing and collecting student assignments, and organizing student tasks in a calendar. So let's take a look first at how to join a Google Classroom. So you guys are going to notice that on my screen right now, I have one of our tutorial cards. I'll go ahead and click through a few of these. So we have one of these for each activity we're going to go through tonight. I'm going to use them mostly as a reference point to house where we're at. Did it show me sliding through the tutorial cards just then, Stephanie? It did? Okay. So all of these are going to be available to you as a resource afterwards. So don't feel like you have to take screenshots or manically scribble and like put a strain on your wrist. All of these are going to be available to you later. So the first thing that we're going to do is talk about how to join a Google Classroom. You're going to go to classroom.google.com and click this little plus icon in the top right corner of the screen. Whenever you click it, it's going to give you these options to join a class, and if you're a teacher, to create a class. So we're just going to click join class, and there's going to be a spot for you to enter an alphanumeric code that your student's teacher gave you. It's going to be 5 to 7 letters or numbers long. And once you plug it in, you're going to be given access to the class.
Bradley, I'm going to
Yes.
stop you just for a moment because for some reason your screen is not sharing. I'm so sorry.
Okay, I will stop sharing and try to reshare. All right. Laura, you think maybe you could stop sharing yours and then we'll try that?
Apologize for the technical difficulties, the reality of virtual and Zoom meetings.
All right, so I'll just go ahead and back up. Can you guys see the Google Classroom?
Perfect. Yes, now we can.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're
thank
good.
you.
Okay. All right, excellent. So like I was saying, you're going to click this plus icon on the top right corner and then click join class. And you're just going to enter your code here. Once you've entered your code, it's going to take you to a classroom that looks an awful lot like the one that I have on my screen now. So the first thing that your student will notice whenever they enter this class is the stream page. The stream page is really similar to Facebook and other social media platforms. It serves as the social hub of Google Classroom. Teachers and in some cases students can post items in the stream. Additionally, assignments that the teacher creates will be announced in the stream automatically. As you can see, Mrs. Conine has posted an assignment that is due soon. If I click her post in the stream, so I'm going to open this one up in a new tab, maybe. Okay, it won't let me open a new tab. I'll just open it up. It will pop up with all of the assignment information that we are interested in. So we're going to cover that in a little bit. For right now, I'm just going to go back to our stream page. The last thing that I want to show you on the stream page is the Google Meet link. That's right here. It's underneath the title for the classroom. What the Google Meet link does is that it is a link that's always available as long as the teacher has activated it, that provides a link for class meetings or one-on-one meetings with the instructor. The nice thing about this is that students cannot get into the meeting with this link unless the teacher is present. But it is nice because it is available to quickly and easily join a scheduled class meeting in this one place.
Awesome. So Bradley has brought us back to that tutorial card, which will be a resource that you will be able to utilize once this webinar is over. We do have your information and we'll forward these tutorial cards to you. We know that this is a lot of information, but don't worry. As we stated, these will be all available to you at a later date. So Bradley just covered an overview of Google Classroom and some of the basic features. Does anybody have any questions at this time about how to get into Google Classroom and the stream page?
One question that I've had in the past that we can talk a little bit about now while our participants are typing is, can I join my student's Google Classroom?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, so parents in general can't, like your student can show you stuff. It's a little bit discouraged for privacy reasons, but there's some stuff that they could comfortably show you, like their assignments that are due or missing and stuff like that. There is a feature we're going to talk about a little bit at the end of this session for you to get email summary updates of what your child is doing or what's missing in their Google Classroom. And we'll get to that just in a little bit.
Awesome. Do we have any additional questions?
Looks like we're good.
I think we're good. They have the awkward moment of silence. So, so next up,
silence. Comfortable.
So next up is Bradley is going to talk about how to check when assignments are due. So take it away, Bradley.
All right, you got it, Stephanie. So there are a few different ways to check if there are assignments that are due or upcoming. So I'm going to go back to our Google Classroom here. The first way that you can do that is by looking at the upcoming window. So if you're on the first page for Google Classroom, the stream page, the upcoming window will be on the left side of the screen. You'll see a few things that are upcoming, like, well, one thing that's upcoming right now, I have an assignment that's going to be due tomorrow, but I can get more details if I click the blue View All button. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And what you're going to see is that there are different links for all of my assignments. What has been assigned and is due can be found under Assigned. What has been assigned and I haven't turned in on time can be found under Missing. And anything that I have already completed can be found under Done. Another nice feature that you can utilize on this page is the drop-down menu. If your children are like Danny's children, they're probably enrolled in more than one Google Classroom at a time. So they're probably going to have one for their English class, one for their math class, and so on. So you can use this drop-down bar to quickly navigate between all of these different classes to get a snapshot of what assignments are upcoming or missing or due, or have already been turned in rather. The last thing I'd like to point out is the structure of this page. So we have items with no due date. Those could be assignments maybe that are on a week by week basis, like maybe there's an ongoing vocabulary activity where students have to fill out a graphic organizer with new vocabulary words every week, or a semester long project. This week and next week are pretty self-explanatory. These are assignments that are upcoming and will be due within the next 7 to 14 days. And later is any assignment that's due further out than 14 days.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So with what Bradley has talked about thus far, do we have any questions maybe about how to check on what's coming up, what's missing, what has been graded? If you notice on this page, it's very simplified that Bradley has showed you. Your students page is probably going to be a lot more involved and have a lot more assignments that have been graded, that are upcoming or are currently working on. So this is a very simplified page to be looking at right now.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so we have another way to check for assignments, which can be found within our Google Calendar. So we're going to go back to our main class, which can be done through a couple of different ways. Like I can click this pancake stack here on the top left corner and then click my class. Next, I'm going to click Classwork. And you're going to notice there are a couple of different buttons we can click on this row where I'm hovering my cursor. You'll notice Meet, which is another way to get into the classroom Google Meet link that we talked about earlier. Google Calendar, which we're going to talk about now, and the Class Drive folder, which we'll talk about here in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to click the Google Calendar, and it's going to launch a new tab for us. And I've already opened it so we don't have to wait for my slow internet to load. So let me go ahead and pull that up. So you're going to notice that I have several different assignments that are due today and tomorrow, and they're all color coded. So teachers can select different colors for their classes to make it easier visually for students and parents to quickly at a glance see, okay, red is math and green is science. All of these assignments are due on these days. The default view is by week, but I can quickly change that by clicking this drop-down menu and changing it to month. Another nice feature is that if you're more of a paper-friendly family, you can easily print this calendar. You just do that by clicking the cogwheel here on the top right corner and then clicking print. And then it'll give you a variety of options for how you can print it. For instance, it's set to landscape right now, so I can quickly and easily change it to portrait.
Awesome. Good deal. I like that you showed us the print option because for me, if I had a student who is in secondary school right now, even though I would love to be a paperless house, I still love to have everything on paper to include my books. I cannot stand reading them on e-readers, but we're supposed to be promoting that, aren't we? We're supposed to be a paperless society. So thank you for sharing that, Bradley. So now that we have viewed how students can find upcoming assignments on the stream page, but also through Google Calendar, does anybody have any questions right now? I think we have one in the chat. We have one question. Will the calendar show things like school holidays?
I don't know the answer to that. I think it depends on how the student's school account is set up. So I think it's definitely in the realm of possibility. Like I know for us at OU, like we have certain holidays that automatically populate on our Google Calendar from OU. So I think it can definitely be done.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing too. What's great is that you can look at that Google Calendar on a monthly view. I know that a lot of your students have multiple activities they're involved with, extracurricular activities. So definitely utilize that monthly view calendar so you can plan ahead to see what big assignments or tests or quizzes that your students may have, and you can balance those extracurricular activities. Any additional questions?
One of the things I noticed when I used Classroom a lot with my students is my own children,
Mhm.
um, is it would so how I was using Google Calendar would integrate with some of my other stuff.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has a Google Calendar that they use, or like on my phone, it just randomly stuff will show up on there. I'm like, oh, okay, you've got this assignment that's due. So I like the integration part of it. So
And the little secret, the teachers can set it up to where the parents have access to a calendar. There's a way that they can give notifications. They can provide that link. So that might be one way. You can ask the student's teacher if you can have a link to the classroom calendar. That's a possibility too. I used to share that with my students' parents during the
yeah,
school
that's
year.
so I was going to say there was a bit of a disparity sometimes between the teachers and classes, but a lot of it would show up on there. And so I don't know what magical thing may or may not have happened, but I liked it.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is another resource that you guys can utilize. Okay, so moving on. A frequent issue that parents and students run into are concerns are actually how to submit those assignments. And in Google Classroom, there's several ways to do this. So Bradley's going to show us how in the heck do we submit those assignments?
Yeah, so I'm glad that you're steering us in that direction, Stephanie. So there are two different ways to turn in assignments on Google Classroom. Probably, more than that, but at least two that I'm going to show you guys tonight. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to want to get back to this Classwork tab. So if you're following along with us live now, or if you're following along later on YouTube, if you don't know how to get back to this page, the easiest way is to click the pancake stack on the top left corner and go back to our class. And then we just click the Classwork tab in the middle once we get there. All right, so first thing that we can do is your student can submit an assignment that the teacher has assigned and pre-generated. To do this, we go to the Classwork tab like we just went through, and then we're going to click one of the tasks that has been assigned to us. I'm going to click this Google icon scavenger hunt. You'll notice that as I click it, it expands out into a larger box, and it gives us a bit of a snapshot about the assignment. It tells us when the assignment was posted. So for me, this was posted a little bit over a month ago. When it's due, so it's due tomorrow. And since it's pre-generated, I have the assignment that I can click. And if I click it, it is going to automatically create an assignment just for me. So if you see right here, it's got the template that the teacher created, but the title automatically tags my name on it. Another nice thing that's really handy is that I don't have to look around for assignments like this where I turn it in. There's a gray button to the left of the share button here. All I have to do is click that. Maybe. It's going to open up to a new page that gives me the option to turn it in. So my wife and I are both teachers. I work for the K-20 Center. My wife is a regular classroom teacher, and we're both competing for bandwidth right now. I think that's what's happening a little bit. Like she's working with a parent in the next room over. So you'll notice right here, there's a couple of different options. Here's the same assignment that I was just looking at. The easiest way to turn in an assignment like this is the blue turn in button. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this assignment in. And we're turning it in. And it's thinking about it, and we're done. The other way that we can turn in an assignment is if the teacher did not pre-generate a task for us like this one, is we can go back to our Classwork tab. So I'm going to go the same way that I just told you about a moment ago. So I'm going to pick one of these other tasks here, like how to use Google Draw and view assignment. I've already turned this one in, so I'm going to show you guys another trick here in just a second. I don't want to do that right now, so let me go back and pick an assignment I haven't turned in. This one's due, upcoming, so let's do this one. So the other thing that we can do is there's another button above the blue turn in button that says add or create in white. Once I click that, it's going to give me a lot of options here. I can create something from scratch for any one of the Google tools that are available, but I can also link something from my Google Drive. I can give a link to a direct web page. So like if I'm sharing with my teacher a video that I watched or an article that I read, I can do that with this option. And if it's something that I downloaded directly to my computer, I can do that here. Like maybe I worked on something on my home computer and I brought it to school, I might do it that way. Or maybe I downloaded a template online, I might upload that in that location. With that, I'll toss it over to some questions.
Hey, did anyone notice that Bradley was missing his assignment? He's turning in his work late.
Don't put me on blast like that, man.
Yeah, he is turning his work late. The last webinar he did, he told everyone how old his mom was too. So Bradley's batting 1,000. I had to bring that up, Bradley. You know I had to.
I know she just recently had her 20th anniversary of her 35th birthday.
Good one.
It looks like we have a question in the chat. It says, when my child accidentally turns his work in before finishing it, can he get it back?
Okay, so let's assume maybe that your child accidentally turned in a picture of a cat in a box or something like that. The easiest way to do that is to go to the assignment that they turned the wrong thing in or that they need to recall. And where there was the blue turn in button, there's now a white button that says unsubmit. So all you have to do is click that, and then some magic happens in the many tubes of the internet and it is back in your possession. So if they turn in an assignment incomplete, they can now go back in and edit that activity. Or if it was the wrong activity, they can pull it and delete this one and upload the correct one. That's a great question. Thank you for asking.
Bradley, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, Bradley, I liked how you showed you can attach files. My one of my kids last year made a video about neurons and synapses when he was learning about them in his discovery science class. And I said, I was like, oh, is this an assignment? And he said, not really. We had an assignment and that he was just doing it for fun.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I guess I am a science teacher. I don't know. Maybe my nerd rubbed off on him. But I said, well, go ahead and give that to your teacher. Brownie points don't hurt. I mean, I didn't say that, but I was thinking that. And so I showed him how to upload the file and stuff. So he was able to upload something that wasn't exactly like a Google app thing, but it was extra work that he did because he was motivated. I thought his teacher would, you know, it's always nice when you know that students are taking an interest in what you're teaching. So I like that you showed that little extra thing, how you can upload other files there.
And that's definitely like the above and beyond like grade for a standard, right?
Right.
All right.
Well, one last thing. I know that students and parents still may, even after this, sometimes they still may have trouble maybe submitting assignments. So some advice that I want to give you guys is you can refer to the tutorial card that we're going to give you as a resource. Or you can send, maybe the student can send a private message to the teacher and say, hey, I need some help, you know, submitting this assignment. Or lastly, the student can actually just email the assignment to the teacher and just say, hey, I was having trouble in Google Classroom. I still wanted to turn this on time. But for a later date, can you show me what I did wrong and how I need to submit this in Google Classroom for next time? So absolutely get your students involved in communicating with their teachers and if they're struggling with something, because I think that's one of those big hurdles that students struggle with is reaching out. So we want to
absolutely. They also struggle with hi Miss so-and-so, comma, you know, like the etiquette sort of stuff. It's been a learning experience, but yeah, so much communication with teachers is vital right now. And you know, I don't know, like I said, when I started, our cohort is 8th and 9th grade. And I know that we probably have a parent of a 9th grader in here, but really, I mean, it could be, I don't know who the families are that are here today, but learning to advocate for yourself when you go into high school is a struggle for a lot of students. And so this whole pandemic stuff has helped, I think, a lot of students learn that they have a question. They can't just sit and wait for someone else in the classroom to ask it. They have to be proactive, and that's something that will serve them well throughout life.
And actually, you'd be surprised when I would get questions from my students, even through email, even if they were too shy to ask in class, it warmed my heart so much to get that response, because I'm like, oh yes, they're reaching out and they're advocating for themselves. And we want that so much for our students. I was a middle school teacher, so I know those middle schoolers, it's really difficult for them to reach out and advocate. Okay, so Bradley, now that we know how to submit assignments that these students have worked so hard to complete, usually the most important question then next is, okay, have you graded my assignment yet? When are you going to grade it? And how do I check my grades? So how do we do that?
All right, so students can easily check on the status and grade of an assignment. So we're just going to go back to our classwork tab the way that I've showed you a few times. So we're going to click the pancake stack and the class and classwork. So on the same row that we just looked at, Google Meet and Google Calendar, off to the left, there's another option that says view your work. So we're going to go ahead and click that, and it's going to open up a new tab for us that generates all of our assignments for a class. Like Stephanie mentioned earlier, like this is a really paltry offering of assignments. Like where your students are now in the semester, they probably have 20 plus assignments for each class. So it's really going to be vital to use this feature to cycle through all of those activities. So we have a bunch of options. If for whatever reason, some browsers, this drop-down menu is on the left. Sometimes it's on the top, like mine is right now. But if I go ahead and click it, it's going to give me options for assignments that have been assigned. So that's stuff that's not due yet. It's just been given to the student, but not completed. Items that have been returned. So that is an assignment that the student has turned in and has been graded and given back to them. And assignments that are missing, which are just assignments that they've missed the due date and haven't been turned in. So I can cycle through all of these right now and show you, like I've got 2 that are assigned. I've got a handful that have been given back to me, and missing, whoops, I got 1 that's in the red there. If I go back to all, there's also some nice visual indicators off to the right here. For instance, if something has been assigned, it says assigned. If it's been turned in, but it hasn't been returned to the student, like they're waiting for the teacher to grade it, it says that right here. It says turned in. It'll say, it'll have an actual grade on it once the teacher returns it. So you can see here, I've got one that's 95 out of 100. I've got one that's 40 out of 50. Some other neat features that you might consider here that are really important are about feedback from, the teacher or from peers. So each of these assignments has a different icon next to it. Like this one has a little speech bubble and this one has an attachment. So the attachment is obviously like an assignment that the student has turned in. The speech bubble indicates anytime that there's an interaction between the student and the teacher, or anytime there's an interaction between the student and another peer. So I'm going to click on this assignment, and you can see a little bit here. If I click view details, it's going to give me a larger option here. So these are private comments between the teacher and I. She's given me some feedback and it's all positive. I can respond like I did here and say, I don't understand ... I don't understand this certain thing. So that's an easy way for me to quickly solicit feedback and ask for help from my teacher, just like Danny and Stephanie were talking about. But I can also ask for help from my peers. So any student that's in this class working on the assignment can go down to this class comments tab and add a comment to this assignment that any student in the class can answer. So that's pretty handy.
So absolutely. So as you can see, it's really easy to check grades in Google Classroom, and then you can separate them by those different categories because, as we stated, ours is very basic, and your student is 3/4 of the way through the school year almost, and they're probably going to have a lot more assignments on there. So, but also don't forget to have your student look at those comments that or feedback a teacher may has provided for your students, because it could provide second chance learning opportunities or an opportunity for your students to have some growth in something they may or may not have understood. So at this time, do we have any questions about how students can check their grades in Google Classroom? I think a common question is that, can I as a parent check my students' work and grades in Google Classroom? And Bradley, I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, so like in general, like the only access as a parent that you're going to get to your child's Google Classroom is if the child's teacher signs you up for the email summary notifications. So that'll give you a quick snapshot every day or once a week for how to, for what's going on with your student in that particular class. The other option is just to ask your student to show you. But like I mentioned, that opens up some privacy issues. So you strictly only want to look at that assignment page whenever you do that.
Okay.
Are there any other questions before we move on? All right, looks like we're good.
Okay, good. Well, Bradley, I do have a question for you. So what if my teacher loses my assignment? Am I able to find it? Did the dog eat it? Or is it lost on the internet forever? Is there some secret place where I can find this lost assignment?
All right, so good question. It is not lost. You can find it again on the class Google Drive folder. So let's go back one last time to the Classwork tab. And again, that's just the pancake stack and clicking on the classroom and then classwork. So the last icon from this row that we haven't looked at is our class drive folder. So we're going to go ahead and click it, and it's going to open us up to our Google Drive. So what is Google Drive? In Google Drive, we can view and create files and organize them by creating folders. All files and folders on Google Drive can easily be shared on Google Classroom or by directly sharing them with someone. All right, so I can easily set this up to directly email to somebody. I'm just going to right click it, and there's an option here that says share. But the nice thing is if I'm on the same network, like, Stephanie and I are both on the @ou.edu domain. So if we're all on the same domain, all I really have to do is type in a name. And it looks like it's not wanting to play nice with me. There we go. We're loading just very slowly.
I blocked you, Bradley.
I'm gone. Am I still here or have I disappeared?
Yeah.
No, you're here. She said she blocked you.
Oh, okay, got it. All right. Sorry. All right, so Stephanie has received this message from me about 20 times. So I'm sure if she filtered her inbox for my name, she's going to see this particular task for all the times that we've done it. But I'm going to do it one last time. So I'm just going to type in Stephanie, and there she is. She pops up, and I just click her name and click send. So for instance, if I was her student, I would just have to type in CON for her last name, and it would immediately pop up. If it was to share to, like, say, a parent, you'd have to type in their whole email address because they're probably not on the school domain. But there's a lot of easy ways to quickly share documents on Google Drive. There's also several layers of security built into the files and folders on Google Drive. You can set it up so that only some people can access the file, or so that anyone with the link can get into it, which is sometimes a good thing. All Google Drive documents, that would be docs, slides, sheets, they can be edited simultaneously by many different people, which makes them a really popular activity for classroom teachers because you can create great group assignments that way. Google Drive can also be accessed in many different ways. It can be accessed on Google Classroom. It can be accessed on a computer browser like I'm doing now. And there's even an app for that. You can download an application for Android or iOS, or if Windows Phone is still a thing, it might be on there too.
Well, that's a relief to hear, but I'm really bummed because I can't blame my dog for eating my homework anymore. Um, I mean, I guess a dog can eat computer. I don't know if anyone has had that happen.
You can blame a lot of things on a dog. So
You can get the dog to eat just about anything. It just takes the right season.
Maybe the dog had an accident on your computer. I don't
that's
know.
right.
Does anybody have any questions about how to access student grades in Google Classroom? And we already did that.
Yeah, we talked about Drive too. One of the things I want to,
that's right. It's been a long day.
yeah, one of the things I wanted to add that just for the families on here that may be interested, there's, this is a lot of different things that you may be thinking, man, I could use some of this in my own personal life, like a Google Doc or a Google Sheet to work on my own budget or whatever. If you have a Google account, you can use Drive in some of these things. Like I have my own, I mean, we all have various emails now, but I use Drive for my own personal stuff that has nothing to do with school or work. And I have a couple of Google Docs and a few different things that I put stuff in. So I think a lot of people have started using Google a lot more since the whole remote learning has happened. But yeah, so if you're really wanting to get in and familiarize yourself with some of this stuff, and it may help you in whatever your hobbies or interests or your profession is, getting in and using Google Slides and Google Docs and Sheets and these sort of things just personally is something you can do without having to pay anything for it.
And that's a great point. I mean, if you already have a Gmail account and use Gmail, you have a Google account. So you're already signed up and you may not even know about it. So so now that we've learned a lot of the key features of Google Classroom, I know we've talked a lot about you as a parent or guardian or a family member, and how to access notifications concerning your students' work. So I think now we're going to move it over to Bradley's going to take it over, and then we're going to have virtual Bradley here for a minute.
We had one question in the chat. How long will it was when you were talking? How long will the work stay in their Drive folder?
That is a great question. So in general, forever, like as long as that particular Google account is active, the work will stay in their Google Drive. For educational accounts, like they get unlimited storage. So you can put pretty much anything and as much of it as you want on your Google Drive. The only thing is that a lot of institutions will sometimes deactivate student accounts after a certain amount of time. So maybe they've graduated from middle school to high school, or they've graduated from high school. Usually within a year or two, they deactivate those assignments and they get rid of the products that were stored in that Google Drive. For your own personal Google Drive, like if it's not an educational account, it stays up forever, but you're limited. You only have a certain amount of storage space that you're allowed to use. Great question.
Thank you for sharing, Bradley. And I thank you for asking that question. So that definitely is a question. So if you know your child is going to be leaving the district, maybe you want to transfer it over to a personal account or to their new school account. You may want to think about that. So again, so you don't have to look over your student's shoulder. How are you guys going to get those notifications about how your student is doing in the classroom? So I think Bradley has that information for us.
Yeah, good news. There is a great easy way that we've mentioned a couple of times. Another feature of Google Classroom is the parent guardian email summary report. To begin receiving these email summaries, you must first contact your child's teacher to request it. To help you with that, we are going to provide you with a form letter that you can copy and paste in an email to your teacher. All right, Laura is going to give us a glimpse into that now. If you look in your chat, she's pasted a copy of it and she's also screen sharing it now. So it's a really simple letter. All you have to do is paste it in, and anything that's in parentheses, you just have to rewrite. So if I were writing this for my son, Jonathan, to Mrs. Conine, dear Mrs. Conine, my son, Jonathan, uses your Google Classroom as a student. So it's just a lot of quick edits and you can email it. You would have to email this to each teacher that is hosting a Google Classroom for your child. So if your child has 4 different Google Classrooms and you want access to all of those for the email summary, you would have to email this letter to each of those teachers, or you could just send it to all of them at once, either way. That said, what happens once the teacher gives us permission and we have access to these emails? We're now going to turn to our esteemed colleague, Virtual Bradley. Welcome back. In this video, we will cover receiving email summaries of your students' progress in Google Classroom. Once your student's teacher has invited you to join the classroom as a guardian, you will receive an email that looks just like the one on my screen. Simply click Accept and a new tab will open. On the new tab, select Accept once again, and you are ready to start receiving the email summaries. Once you begin receiving emails, you can review missing work, upcoming work, and class activities for your student. A word of warning, if a teacher turns off email notifications, you might not get an email summary. Finally, once you begin receiving email summaries, you can go to the bottom of the email and click the settings button to adjust the frequency of emails. You can adjust it between weekly, daily, or none at all. You can even unsubscribe from the emails if it eventually gets to a point that you no longer want them. Welcome back. Oh, Virtual Bradley, you already had your turn to talk.
Oh, he did. He already had his turn to talk. He wants to talk again. So thank you, Virtual Bradley. So as we talked about earlier, communication is really important in ensuring that students stay on task. So we hope that you utilize this tool in receiving updates concerning your students' progress. And then maybe you can open that door of communication where if maybe they are missing assignments, or if they have questions, or maybe they got a low grade on something, they can advocate for themselves and reach out to their teachers. So absolutely. Okay, so moving on, now that you know how to get reports on your students' progress, now we're going to move it over to a little bit different activity where you guys are going to be involved. I'm going to hand it over to Jane.
Hey, thank you, Stephanie. Now, I know that you all have just received a lot of information, so we're going to take a moment and reflect on what we learned today by engaging in the strategy, 2 stars and a wish. At this time, you will utilize the tiny URL that you see posted in the chat, or you can use your phone or other electronic device to scan the QR code with your camera. And if you are unable to access or participate in this activity, that is okay. I don't want you to worry about that. Just follow along, and you can post your chats in the comment. Your comments in the chat. So, okay. So you see now on the screen the form that you will be filling out. And when you have access to this form, we would like you to reflect on 2 things you have learned today. That's your 2 stars. And then for the next question, take a moment and think about 1 wish. And what is 1 thing that you wish you could have learned more about today? And we'll give you a moment to fill in your responses.
So Bradley, when you were utilizing you were utilizing Google Classroom for several years. How long were you utilizing Google Classroom?
Maybe 3 years actively. I first was introduced to it maybe 4 years ago, and I didn't really jump on board. But I used it for about 3 years with my students.
So do you have any 2 wishes that when you were utilizing Google Classroom? Because we don't ever hear from the teacher's perspective.
Yeah, so 2 things that I really liked about Google Classroom. One was the collaboration feature. Like, it was really easy for students to find something and work on it with a peer, in class, like before COVID. Like, that platform made it super easy for them to collaborate on something, to transition quickly from Google Classroom to Google Drive. And I also liked how easy it was for me to communicate. Like, prior to that, I was using an app called Remind to push out messages to students. And it became a little bit easier and probably a little bit less burdensome for parents, because they were also on the list, for me to put stuff that was really just related to grades in the Google Classroom feed.
Yeah.
And then 1 wish I had, I don't know. I'm sure I could think of a few things, but
I have a wish if you can't think of one.
Okay.
They didn't used to have the stream page. And it took me, I used the Google Classroom for about 5 years. And I think it was 2 years ago that they implemented the stream page. And it took me a minute to get used to the stream page. It used to just be the classroom page only. So they kind of added another layer to it. So I kind of wish a little bit they would go back to the old way, but I also see the positives on the stream page too. So.
Well, thank you, Bradley and Stephanie, for sharing your experiences. The help for filling those awkward silent moments. Okay, so let's look at some of our responses that we've got. Okay, so I love how easy it is to check grades and that parents can receive email notifications. That is so important, and it really helps so much before in staying aware of what your student is doing and how to use Stream, checking the grades. Let's see, turning in work. Again, so important. Easy to navigate, and now I think I can help my kids. That's such a big deal, and that's the whole purpose. We want to make life easier for you. The detailed information and video resources. I'm so grateful that you guys are excited about that, because I feel like that's one of the most important things that we're doing for you today. Learned how easy it is to use Google. I can help my student. Bradley's jokes before we got going. Yay, thank you, Bradley. Okay, and 1 thing that you wish you had learned from our session today. I wish I could view my students' assignments. And yes, while you can't go in and actually open up your student's stuff and look at it, you can always ask your student if they would open it up and show it for you, as Bradley has shared. So I agree. That's something I would wish too. How to make my kids get better grades? Yes. Can't we make them? Come on. But hopefully this will help. Using each of the Google apps, Sheets, Docs, etc. And I'm so excited to see that you're interested in that. And I see that it's actually mentioned twice. So we actually are going to bring that up here in a moment. I wish I could learn how to say my dog ate my homework for an online assignment. Yeah, that could be handy. Unfortunately, that one is gone. Okay, well, thank you guys for your participation and for your responses. We really do appreciate that. And let's see, on our next slide is the thing I said I was going to tell you a little bit more about. Again, we are very happy that you want to learn more about Google Tools. So coming soon, we have a new webinar that you can participate in and learn more about the Google Docs and the slides and the other tools. So keep a lookout in your email for our next webinar registration that will be coming to you soon.
For those of you that have learned with us remotely, we give you our heartfelt thanks. One last thing we would like to ask of you before you go is to complete a short survey. We would like to know the impact of this webinar and what schools and grade levels that we have assisted. If you don't mind, please scan the QR code on the screen or enter the tiny URL into your web browser. Thanks again, and we hope to see you again soon for our next webinar, Google Tools for Parents.